What if I told you she never actually loved you? Not the way you hoped, not the way you believed, not even the way she said she did. What if everything she adored in you wasn't really you at all, but a voice in her own head whispering lines you never spoke, writing stories you never agreed to star in. You were not her partner. You were a mirror, a screen, a puppet dancing to a silent tune you never heard. And one day, without warning, she looked at you differently, colder, emptier, as if you had changed. But you didn't change. You just stopped playing the role. And that's when she realized she was never in love with you. She was in love with the fantasy. She didn't fall in love with you. She fell in love with the idea of you. From the very first moment, her mind was already spinning a story, a silent film in her head, where you played the lead. Not because of who you are, but because of what you seemed to promise. Safety, strength, sensitivity, completion. Carl Jung called this projection a psychological phenomenon, where we unconsciously transfer parts of ourselves onto others. But this wasn't just any projection. This was the Animus, the inner masculine image that lives inside every woman. A figure shaped by fairy tales, teenage novels, broken fathers, and unavailable lovers. And when she looked at you, she didn't see you. She saw him, her inner man, her silent rescuer, her imagined hero. And it felt electric, powerful, meant to be. But there was just one problem. You weren't him. You were never supposed to be. You thought it was a relationship, but it was an audition. Every word you said, every glance, every silence, it was being evaluated. Not by who she was, but by who she hoped you'd be. Did you say what her fantasy needed to hear? Did you act like the version of you that only lived in her imagination? Carl Jung warned us the unconscious does not merely distort reality. It replaces it. She wasn't falling in love with your truth. She was falling in love with your compatibility, with a dream she'd been rehearsing long before you showed up. And the standards, they were invisible, unspoken, non-negotiable. One day you speak your mind, not harshly, not carelessly, just truthfully. And suddenly, the light in her eyes fades. Because you stepped off script. You broke character. And the punishment for that, rejection, withdrawal, coldness that you couldn't explain but could only feel like a silent door slowly closing. Not because you failed her, but because you stopped being him. At first it felt magical. She admired everything. The way you spoke, the way you laughed, even the way you just existed. You were her leading man. But not because of who you truly were, because you still fit the script. You were still believable, still him. But illusions are fragile. It starts slowly. A strange silence, a sudden coldness, moments where your honesty is met with confusion or worse, annoyance. And you wonder, what changed? Nothing, except now you're speaking with your own voice. You're no longer echoing her fantasy. You show needs, you show flaws, you show depth, and suddenly, the chemistry disappears. But it's not chemistry. It's disappointment, not in you. In the fantasy that just cracked, because she wasn't in love with a man. She was in love with a mirror. And when the reflection changed, so did the love. What you called connection was really projection. And now the spell breaks, and you're left staring at someone who no longer sees you at all. You were never truly in the story. Not your story. Not hers either. But a story written long ago in the quiet corners of her unconscious. You never had a name. Not really. Just a role. The good man. The protector. The mind reader. The one who just gets her. And as long as you stayed in costume, as long as you read the lines without hesitation, she loved you. Or rather, she loved what you represented. Not a person, a projection, an emotional solution to wounds she never dared to face. But the moment you spoke outside the script, when your soul peeked out, when your truth broke through, the illusion couldn't hold. Because real people are inconvenient. They challenge us. They disrupt our fantasies. They say things we didn't script for. So she recoiled. Not because she saw your flaws, but because she saw you. And she didn't know what to do with that. Because you were never in the plan. She was never loving you. She was loving herself through you. Carl Jung didn't write for comfort. He didn't offer steps, shortcuts, or feel-good slogans. He offered truth raw, uncomfortable, and shattering. And one of his greatest warnings was this: projection turns a real person into a carrier of your own unconscious content. It doesn't matter how sincere she seemed, how warm her love felt, how deeply she cried when you held her. If she was projecting her animus onto you, you were never you in her eyes. You were a mirror, a symbol, a voice for her own inner world. And the moment you stopped reflecting that, she didn't just lose you. She lost herself. Jung warned that an unconscious woman possessed by her animus doesn't love. She commands, she preaches, she judges, and she idealizes, not because she sees clearly, but because she's blind to her own inner man. And men, Jung's warning was just as severe. Do not be flattered when a woman idealizes you. You are being set up to fail. When you mistake projection for love, you lose yourself trying to protect an illusion. You become a character in someone else's myth, and slowly, silently, you forget your own name. So now you know. You weren't crazy. You weren't weak. You weren't unworthy of love. You were simply never seen. And that's the part that hurts the most, isn't it? It's not the breakup, not the silence, not even the rejection. It's the realization that she was never loving you, because she never really met you. She loved the fantasy, the role, the echo of her own longing. And you were just close enough to convince her it was real, until your truth ruined the script. So what do you do now? You stop asking to be chosen. You stop auditioning for a part you never wrote. You stop trying to earn what should have been real. And you start remembering who you were before you became a reflection. Jung called it individuation, not healing, not fixing, not proving, but becoming. Becoming the man who no longer performs, who no longer begs, who no longer lives to fulfill another's fantasy, because that man is free. If something inside you stirred while listening to this, don't look away. Don't scroll past. Don't bury it under distractions, because that ache you feel, that quiet burn in your chest, it's not weakness. It's your soul waking up. You were never meant to be someone's fantasy. You were never born to be a reflection. You were meant to become you fully, unapologetically, completely. So if you're ready to walk that path, the path Jung called individuation, then walk with us. This isn't a place for empty motivation. It's not for shortcuts. It's not for boys chasing approval. It's for men who are done performing, done being mirrors, done being masks, done being replaceable. If this spoke to you, like it really deeply spoke to something buried inside, then share this with a man you care about. Not to go viral, not to get views, but because maybe he too is tired of being a ghost in someone else's dream. And remember this, she never loved you. She loved the voice in her head. But now, it's time to love your own voice instead.